having effective meetings.
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on Mitv, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on Mitv, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Hello and thanks for joining Corporate Governance Platform. The program is proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. Today, we are going to be looking at a very important topic, the relevance of whistleblowing to corporate sustainability. My name is Tunde Odeyemi, and to do justice and lead in the conversation is a very distinguished fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, Dr. Nechi Eziako. Dr. Nechi Eziako is a lawyer, Chartered Secretary and Administrator, Authorized Corporate Governance and Board Leadership Trainer, Certified Company Secretary Trainer, Advanced Anti-Corruption and Ethics Compliance Trainer, Ethics First Trainer, Board Evaluator, Qualified Arbitrator and CEDR Accredited Mediator with over 30 years of experience in the consulting, financial services, manufacturing, real estate, not-for-profit sectors, etc. She holds, among others, a master's degree in corporate governance with distinction from the Leeds Metropolitan University, now Leeds Beckett University, United Kingdom. She is an alumnus of the Executive Leadership High Achievement as well as the Lagos Business School Senior Management Programs. And for over a decade, Dr. Nechi Eziako served as Group Company Secretary and Legal Advisor of Finback PLC, then a public quoted financial institution, now part of FCMB. Thereafter, as the Principal Consultant of L Values Advisory, a management consulting and legal services firm funded by her. She was the Executive Director, Institute of Directors, Nigeria, and the Executive Director and CEO of the Institute of Directors Center for nearly 5 years, where she trained directors and C-suite executives in the public and private sectors on corporate governance and ethic compliance. She has received numerous awards and considers raising her 4 adult children as her greatest fulfillment. Dr. Nechi Eziako, it's a very big pleasure to have you on Corporate Governance Platform.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Like I said, we are going to be looking at a very important topic today, whistleblowing. The relevance of whistleblowing to corporate sustainability. Let's start this conversation by knowing what do we really mean by whistleblowing and what is the purpose of whistleblowing in corporate organizations.
Thank you for that question. Basically, whistleblowing speaks to drawing attention, draws attention of everyone to scenarios in which some wrongdoing is in place. Unethical behavior, illegal behavior, fraudulent practices, things that can put the organization in trouble. you know, things that can affect the reputation of the organization, things that can actually draw litigation against the organization. So that's, if you look at our Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance, you will see that the code speaks in Principle 19 about the importance of the whistleblowing framework. And it says that it's for the purpose of minimizing the organization's exposure to negativity, all these negative things. Because at the end of the day, there are risks. There are risks. So whistleblower policies and whistleblowing mechanism help to ensure that there is a proper framework that protects the organization.
Okay, it's a sort of an alert to protect negativity happening to the organization.
Yes.
Then what then is the relevance of whistleblowing to the concept of corporate governance? Excellent
point. In the context of corporate governance, we know that the board has responsibility for effectiveness, effectively directing the company, effectively leading the company, effectively putting things in place that ensures that the company actually meets the purpose for which it was set up. Now, if people are acting unethically, if people are acting illegally, if things are being done wrongly, and the board does not do anything about it, then the board has failed in its effectiveness.
Okay.
But it's also important, because we know the human nature, nobody wants to be reported. So if someone is drawing attention or reporting wrong behavior, then that person may be in danger. So the board then has the responsibility to ensure that those who stand up to protect the company and bring these wrongdoings to the attention of the board, because it can be brought to the attention of the board as an internal stakeholder that has the role to play, or it can also be brought to the attention of the regulator as an external stakeholder that also has a role to play. But whoever brings these things to the attention of the board or the regulator must be protected. So the board then has that responsibility to put in place the necessary frameworks and mechanisms to ensure that those whistleblowers are protected. So the entire thing will be encompassed in a policy, and the mechanisms for implementing that policy will be put in place. So the board must determine who that whistleblowing should be, or that whistle should be blown
to. Okay.
Exactly. What are the circumstances during which a whistle should be blown? Because there's a difference between whistleblower and somebody who is aggrieved.
Okay.
And is reporting a grievance. There are two different
somebody
things.
That has a complaint.
Yes, okay. Somebody who has a complaint. There are two different things. Whistleblower, somebody who is a whistleblower is someone who is actually acting in public interest, in the interest of the organization, not necessarily for themselves. Okay. So they are putting themselves on the line, so they need to be protected, and the board has to put in place the mechanism for protecting the person. The board has to put in place clear policies and who should drive that process, and also how the board will receive reports back to itself.
Okay, you have said a lot, but before I ask my next question, I'd like to invite our viewers to be part of this conversation by asking questions or making comments on the show. Your questions or comments can be via text message to 08023231287. I take the number again. Your questions or comments can be sent directly to 08023231287. Please, no phone call. Now, you have told us the relevance of whistleblowing to the concept of corporate governance. And you also mentioned the NCCG, Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance Framework. Yeah. The framework provides that the employees and, of course, external stakeholders must be aware of the framework. How can organizations go about this? And how can somebody is watching us, is eager to blow a whistle in his organization? He has seen something that could affect the organization negatively. How can that person go about it?
Yes. So it is one of those circumstances in which, like the corporate governance itself, there's no one size fits all.
Okay.
Which is why each board must set and put in place its own policy. And the way that policy will be driven, and of course, which committees should handle what and how. Now, a whistleblower or a potential whistleblower that wants to blow the whistle will have to blow it in line with the particular policy of his own particular organization. And it's in some organizations, the people who the whistle is blown to are internal persons. Sometimes it will be like the audit team or the chief auditor executive or a committee, made up of compliance and audit or whatever. It depends. And in some other cases, it's even to an external stakeholder. It could be to an external firm that has been engaged by the board to process that thing. I was privileged to be a member of the ethics committee of the Institute of Directors, and we developed a code of ethics for the Institute of Directors and its members, and even for the employees. And then we went further at the direction of the council to develop a whistleblowing framework and mechanism. And that mechanism was put in the hands of an external firm to handle it, because we wanted a kind of independence, for not just that there should be independence, but that those who want to blow the whistle should feel that, oh yes, this is really an independent process and I'm going to be protected. And in instances where confidentiality, and of course usually you want confidentiality of the whistleblower to be protected, and you don't want to be telling the person against whom a whistle was blown that this is the person that blew the whistle. No, you don't want to do that, because it can actually be very dangerous. So people will feel more safer knowing that that it is outside the organization than when it is within the organization.
Okay, I'm still going to come back to the issue of telling the person that blows the whistle. But before then, you have said that whistle can be blown internally, and it can also be blown externally.
Yes.
Now, the investigation of the whistle that is blown.
Yes.
How can it be done? Should it be done internally or externally, and why?
Again, that's is part of what the framework will determine. And usually, from my own experience, what happens is that the organization that's handling the whistleblower process has its own mechanisms for the investigation. So you look at some of the big audit firms, they actually have a department that handles whistleblower renders this service. And I could even mention to you that even our own Institute of Directors Center for Corporate Governance, which I used to lead, actually has also a whistleblower mechanism, a system whereby it also helps organizations to process their whistleblower process. So in each instance, these organizations have their systems within them whereby they investigate, and of course that would involve knowing who the whistleblower is, obviously, because they may want to ask the whistleblower some more questions. They may want to have more information on which to determine the extent to which to pursue the issues raised in the whistleblowing further. So it's very important, therefore, that those organizations have or appreciate the issue of confidentiality. I cannot overemphasize this issue of confidentiality, because the whistleblower must be protected, but at the same time, necessary investigations have to be done. And in the case of the internal people, the audit team I used to investigate in. I used to work in the financial services sector, and we're used to having either the inspectorate, the inspectorate department coming to investigate or do whatever, or having the internal auditors coming to do investigation. So this is part of their professionalism. They are good at that. So if the company, therefore, or the board of the particular company decides that is the auditors or the inspectors that should handle this, those ones have what it takes. But that doesn't stop them. Nothing stops them from also engaging external stakeholders to help them with the investigation. You can have an external party to do, because you want to give it an arm's length. Because imagine if it was the chief audit executive that the whistle was blown against.
Is it then necessary to give the whistleblower updates on how the investigation is being carried on?
Good question. Actually, giving the whistleblower update on how the investigation is being carried on, not necessarily on a blow-by-blow account basis, but at least information that reassures the whistleblower that something is being done, I think it's very important. because it assures someone who has taken the risk of harm to himself or herself to come forward in the interest of the public good, to know that this board is actually committed to right doing in the organization. It's not just lip service, you know. And not just that, the board is also supposed to, as the code also recommends, periodically restate its commitment to whistleblowing, restate its commitment to protecting the whistleblower. So in the process of making those pronouncements, the board can give a report without necessarily giving all the details. For example, we've received, and this is part of the report that the audit committee is supposed to handle. You know, the audit committee receives reports from the team that is handling the whistleblower reports. So they get the information as to how many whistles were blown, how many have been investigated, how many of them have investigations, what are the stages of each of the investigations, which of them has the investigation confirmed to be true, which of them are still ongoing, and so on and so forth. So if the board, of course, audit committee reports to the board. So if the board therefore comes and gives a feedback to say, oh, we've received the past year, we've received 200 whistles were blown, and 20 were found to be, you know, very serious issues, which were taken, you know, up with the regulators, when some people have been fired, and so on and so forth. And then another 50 are still ongoing, and another 10 were, those who were reported were able to explain to our satisfaction why they did what they did and all that. Anybody, apart from the whistleblower himself, hearing those reports will know that, this whistleblowing policy is not just a story. We're actually doing it. We're walking the talk in this organization.
Okay. Why I think many people probably not blow whistle is because of the word victimization.
Yes.
Now, if a whistleblower feels that he or she is being victimized and reports to the board and probably to the regulator, and both are having conflicting positions concerning the issue of victimization, what should the whistleblower do?
That's a very interesting question. The code does say the whistleblower can report to the board or to the regulator, or both.
Okay.
So if he does to both, and they are both having conflicting reports, well, in our environment, of course, we're speaking hypothetically here, but if I use the financial services sector, for instance, where I worked, I mean, I can't imagine a situation where something has been reported to the central bank and reported to the board of directors of a bank, and the bank's board is saying, we don't agree with the central bank. The central bank is the regulator. So
must they always agree with the regulator?
No. The point is that the regulator is more likely to be independent.
Okay.
In respect of
in
the
its
matter.
Investigation.
Yes, because the truth of the matter is that the regulator may not even know the individuals involved. Whereas the board, it might even be a whistle blown against one of the board members. And the board others, well, it may not be me, but of course it's my colleague. The tendency, groupthink, the concept of groupthink, the tendency to want to also protect one another and all that. And this is somebody you have been together with for a long time. So who is likely to be objective? The regulator, and the regulator regulates. So if
but can the regulator protect the whistleblower?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, because if the board exposes the whistleblower just because the board is not happy with the whistle that has been blown, then the regulator can fire the board. I mean, we've seen that happen in Nigeria. We've seen the regulator firing the board, not necessarily because of a whistleblower. Incidentally, we even had an instance in this country some years ago that involved one of the banks, in which a whistleblower, had blown the whistle to the board, and the board did not take the appropriate action, and she escalated it to the regulators.
Okay.
And the regulators, after investigating, they found that she was right. But incidentally, because she escalated it to the regulators, the board had fired her. And she was a director, an executive director of finance. And the board had fired her, and the regulators said she was right, and they restated and they fired the board.
Wonderful.
Yes, they fired the chairman, fired the CEO.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, we have a text message from somebody. This person is Kemi Balogun. She's asking, how would you reconcile the practice that whistleblowing can be done anonymously and the recent initiative to give whistleblower incentives?
That's the Nigerian whistleblower policy.
Yes.
Yes, but the Nigerian whistleblower policy, you see, anonymously, in our context, as I notice, is that it tends to be interpreted as if it means the same thing as confidentially.
Okay.
Yes, because if you even the code, Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance also uses the word anonymously in one breath, then continues with confidentially in the next, and goes on with confidentially.
So interchangeably.
Kind of interchangeably. But the point is that, of course, if it is anonymous, who are we going to give the money to? That we won't know who to give the money. But the point is that it is supposed to be confidentially in the sense that the person is known to those he has spoken to those he has approached, but not those people now protect him or her from any other person knowing who he is. So that is the key point. And that's, again, back to the issue you raised earlier about the victimization, you know.
Okay, the federal government has a national policy on whistleblowing.
Yes.
Is this sufficient? Shouldn't they have an act of parliament on the issue of whistleblowing and make it a normal law?
Truth be told, in this country, we have a lot of laws. And from my experience and my observation, it's not so much about whether it is called a law or whether it is called a policy. Okay. It is more about commitment to that. Because a lot of our laws have not been implemented as effectively as even this policy. You know, this policy, there was an interest in it. A lot of money was hiding in different places, and there was an interest on the part of the government to find those monies, and they now put an incentive between 2.5% and 5%. If we actually find the money based on your whistle, we will pay you. And that also incentivized those, because oftentimes when people are committing these crimes, or or doing these illegalities, unethical practices, people know, but sometimes people are afraid to speak up. Sometimes people, have their reasons for not speaking up. So now they put an incentive that made it worthwhile to speak up, and people then began to speak up, and a lot of money was recovered. So
because of that incentive?
Yes, because of the incentive and the commitment of the government to finding the money was one.
Okay.
Then, and when the moment the first person blew the whistle, the money was found, the person was paid. Whistles were...
The person was paid?
Yes.
Of course, many people will blow whistles.
Whistles were flying.
I'm actually looking for a whistle to blow now. Now let's come back to Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance.
Yes.
The whistleblowing policy in the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance,
yes,
is it also useful for the public sector?
Absolutely. You see, one thing about ethical issues, whistleblowing is one of those important policies of corporate governance policy. Just like you have conflict of interest, you have whistleblower, you have even I work. I'm like you read out. I'm an advanced ethics trainer. I'm a member of the Business Integrity Network, Africa Business Integrity Network, an advanced trainer with the Africa Business Integrity Network, and we canvass the issue of ethics compliance. Whistleblower policy is one of the key codes that we push out there.
Okay.
But then it goes side by side with some other codes like code of ethics, code of conduct.
Okay.
Because by the time you are blowing a whistle about what somebody is doing, it has to be based on some wrongdoing. It's either wrongdoing against the law or wrongdoing against the ethics we have agreed to.
Okay,
yes.
We have another text message here.
Okay.
This text message is from Moronfolu Ramon from Alagbole, Ogun State.
Yeah.
He's asking, at what stage, I'm going to take two questions together anyway because of that. At what stage should an issue be escalated or should a whistle be blown? That is the question from Ramon. But mine is, what is your advice to corporate players on whistleblowing?
Okay. Essentially, is the main advice is to have a policy, and that also answers Ramon's question, because when and again, that's what the code also speaks to. When there is a policy, a framework, a mechanism, you see, there are three words. One is policy, one is framework, one is mechanism. They are all encompassing. They encompass the different ways, the dimensions, the roles different stakeholders will play, because there are different stakeholders that will play roles. You ask question about victimization. There is also the issue of the person blowing the whistle might even be a supplier. So they may say because of it, we won't give you business again. The code even speaks about rectifying or putting that person back in business. You cannot stop someone from having business because of that, and so on and so forth. And remembering that the purpose is to protect our organization, because when the organization is protected, all of us are protected. Whether I'm a supplier or I'm a staff or I'm a director,
just stakeholders to protect the organization. And
so at the end of the day,
at the end of the day, it's a positive for the organization. Okay,
for everyone.
And on that note, we are going to call a wrap on today's episode of Corporate Governance Platform. Thank you very much, Dr. Neshi Eziako, a fellow of ICSAN, a member of ICSAN's board of mentors. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on the issue of whistleblowing. And for those that have watched today's episode, we are saying thank you. And those that sent us messages, thank you for being part of the show. We invite you to join us again next week, same time, same station. I remain Tunde Odeyemi. My producer has been Adegboye Galabiran. And of course, the technical director is David Adepoju. Keep spreading the gospel of corporate governance. Bye for now.
Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.